I got you. I made you click on this video and now you're stuck because you want to know how to make some shelves. Well, I'm glad you clicked on my video because I'm going to show you how to make these two shelves out of a sheet of plywood. In my first ever episode of making shelves out of plywood. Whew, that was fancy, huh? The two shelves I'm going to make, they're going to be 36 inches in length, 6 inches wide, and 2 inches thick. Now the sheet of plywood that I'm going to use, it's not a sheet of plywood. It's actually a MDF board that's 1/2 inch thick, a normal 4x8 sheet, but it's layered with a veneer white oak face. I probably sounded smart, didn't I? But look, I'm going to take this sheet, cut it in half. The reason why I'm going to cut it in half is because the shelf length is 36 inches. It comes out 6 inches on top and bottom. That equals 48 inches. Exactly why I cut it in half. Now, when I cut it in half, I'm going to cut it down this way. First, I'm going to cut the top of the first shelf. Then I'm going to cut the center of the shelf. Then I'm going to cut the bottom of the shelf until I have this twice. Now, I cut it already. Forgot to film it. Cry me a river. But now it's time to cut that first piece, which we said originally it's going to be 6 inches. So that's what I'm doing here and measuring that up. Wow, don't you wish you can cut like me? No, I'm just playing. So now it's time to hit that center piece, which is going to be the face of the shelf. We said 2 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and measure 2 inches and cut that down as well. Now that I have that done, these two pieces are out of the way. You're ready to move on to the bottom of the shelf. Now what I do here is a little trick. I'm going to take that original piece, push it up to the blade and the fence to make sure I got the same cut. And then I cut the top of the shelf with the remaining piece of that board. Yay, you did it! You made your first ever shelf. Ha! Psych, not yet. Now I'm going to take my Bora centipede out. This thing is amazing. I'm going to take a scrap sheet of plywood, set it on the top. It's basically a mobile table. Now I'm going to lay those pieces down in order. And now you're going to see why I didn't just cut the tops first or the bottoms first and then just cut the center pieces later. I want the grain to flow. Look at that. That grain is flowing like a river. Like, cry me a river. Oof. Yeah, you can probably just exit out this video now. That was dumb. Well, if you're still here, I take my 36-inch template, put it right in the center of that, make sure I have 6 inches on both sides because we're going to wrap that around. When I say wrap around, we're only going to wrap around that 2-inch piece because that's going to be your continuous flow of a face of your shelf. Of a face of your shelf? Probably could have used better language than that. Well, anyways, I'm marking here those 2 X's because we're not going to need those pieces and you'll see why. And I also mark my A side. That helps me know that the grain flows right there because it's all A and I don't have to use my eyeballs to make sure it's at the right side. So this side, I'm using B. And yes, I forgot to put A on that other piece. So there you go. Now we're going to cut those pieces right down that line using my handy dandy table saw sled. Now if you don't have one of these, it's okay. You got a miter saw or maybe you're just using a circular saw. That's fine. Go ahead and use that. You don't have to be fancy like me. The benefits of having this sled is just repeatable cuts, and it helps cut through that veneer layer nice and clean, unlike a miter saw or a circular saw, which usually just rips it up. But it's okay. You can either use some tape. You'll see that trick online somewhere where you can tape down where you're going to cut and hit that miter saw to where the veneer doesn't peel up. Now you can see why I wanted you to cut at 48 inches, not just 36 inches, because that face is going to be a continuous flow. Now you can take those bigger pieces, the top and bottom, and cut down that same line that you marked, because you're not going to need that space. That space is for some other place. Matter of fact, you can just get rid of those pieces, throw them in the street or something. Come back and take your top piece and do the same process. Congratulations, you have made your first shelf. Psych, there's more to go. Now you're gonna cut 45s. Now when you cut 45-degree cuts, get a good blade, something with either 80 teeth or even 60 teeth. It's gonna help you cut and not mess up that veneer. If you don't trust me, it's okay, use your same blade, find out later. Now at the time of this recording, I had my old contractor saw. I always had to make sure that that's right at a 45. But my new saw, I don't have to do that. Remember those scraps I told you to throw at your neighbor? Well, go ahead and go in the street and pick those back up, because you're going to use this as a test dummy to make sure you got that 45 right at the edge. Because remember, you cut these at 6 inches. You want to keep it at 6 inches as closely as possible. So use that. Make sure you got it down. If you need to adjust a little bit, go ahead and do that. Then you come back with the actual piece that you need to cut the 45 at. Now for you ASMR weirdos, the audio messed up, so you're gonna have to hear my voice for about the rest of the video. Sorry about that. Now that you cut the faces at a 45, you're gonna take those center pieces and cut 45s on both sides. Good thing you kept another scrap. Use that scrap. Make sure you got it right. Scrappity scrappy scrap. I'm just trying to fill the silence. You probably already left this video. It's okay. We're still friends. Now once you got those two sharp edges, you are good to go. Wait a second. We said 2 inches, right? We're not good to go. I'm going to tap it over just a little bit more and cut it to make sure it's exactly 2 inches. Now don't move it too much, because you can take off too much and then you're just going to have to either cry, quit, or roll with it. Now that you have the size that you want, do not, I repeat, do not move your fence. You want to keep that at the right size while you cut the left and right side of the face, and then come back with the actual front of the shelf. Cut both sides of that, and then you're ready to go. Ooh, it's cold. Do you see my breath? Yeah, I think at this time it was about to snow, so I can't feel my hands in this video. Now it's time to cut the sides with the 45. And then here I go again, bringing out another handy dandy sled. This is my 45 sled. Rest in peace. I no longer have this because I have a new table saw. But again, you can use a miter saw or a circular saw. But if you are going to do these continuous cuts, I advise you to make a sled. Now, depending on how good this video does, if I get at least 20 views, I'll do another video and show you how to make one of these sleds. Because boy, oh boy, you need a very clean cut when you cut these. It needs to be square, and I'll show you why later. So as I cut the face and the sides, I'm getting that much closer to our first shelf. I hope you see now why I marked it A and B, so that I don't have to use my brain. I could just match those up just like that. Now, I might need to cut the back of that face, because look, there's some hangover there. So what I'm going to do is take that measurement, cut it right at 6 inches, and I should be good to go. Look at that. Now scoot those very close to each other. Make sure those lines are straight. Now, if you have huge gaps, miter fold is done. You're not going to be able to do it. If you have minimal gaps, you're good to go. Now, this tape that I'm using is trash. Don't do it. In a future video, I'm going to show you which tape to use. Since I haven't told you yet, just go ahead and use some painter's tape. Painter's tape is pretty strong. Now, I'm going to take the center of that, which beautifully it was 1 inch. I'm going to take that over to my table saw and use a scrap and cut it down to where I have this skeleton here. So when I fold it over, bam, look at that. But I'm going to have to cut the sides because when you install, you're going to need a back plate. So I'm going to cut it down to probably about 4 inches. I don't remember what I did. Maybe it was 4 inches. Not sure. Never make your skeleton go all the way to the back of the shelf. You're going to need that space. So just remember that. Now I use some Titebond glue to glue these down. And I don't need a centerpiece because it's only 36 inches. Now if I go a little bit bigger, I'll do some centerpieces. This small, you don't need it. The more space, the better for the brackets. And I'm going to use some of that Titebond and get those crevices. Is that how you say that? I have no clue. I've never said multiple crevices. I'll look that up later. Now, when you put that glue down those crevices, the tape is going to prevent the glue from coming out. Now, some glue is going to come out. It's okay. Make sure you wipe it off right away. Also, you don't need this tool to keep it nice and tight. I just use it because I have it. You can use some clamps. Let that dry up overnight, but not for me. Now, while the glue is drying, hopefully it's still kind of wet. Come back with a screwdriver and bend those fibers together, and then come back with a light sand, and you'll have a smooth transition there. This is why you want straight cuts, because you want it to fit just like this. Oof. My goodness. And I'm using that tape to let it dry a little bit, and I'll come back with some pins to hold it still. And again, I can use the screwdriver trick while the glue's wet. Come back with the sander. Good to go. After that's done, I'm going to move over to the next side and watch that go in so smooth. Wow, that is a clean finish right there. Yep, I hit it with some pins again. Again, you can use clamps. Hit it with the screwdriver and the sander. The reason why I pin the tape is because later on I need to use wood filler to fill in those holes. And the tape makes it that much more cleaner. I can just rip it off. And it's just a single dot that I need to sand. Now the finish I use is from Bora. This is a matte finish. And it gives it that natural finish with a nice layer of protection without that shine. That makes it look like an IKEA shelf or a slippery, shiny shelf. I usually spray it on, but for this video it was too cold. You can easily just wipe it on with the foam brush. And then after you wipe it on, give it a light sand, and bam, you are done. You officially made yourself a shelf using the miter fold method, thanks to moi. Now, I have a couple more methods that I want to show you, but if I don't get love on this, you ain't getting none of this. I have like 4 or 5 more methods. Now just subscribe, show some love, and I'll help you out.